Welcome to El Paso Solar Co-op first Solar 101 info session. As I stated earlier, my name is America Garcia, and I am the Texas Program Director. So today we'll be covering the technology and the economics. This information will help you understand the process of going solar as well as how our organization works in this space. A few things, please choose your mic and speakers for computer audio. Please submit any questions that you have in the chat. And third, this webinar is being recorded. So that means that we'll share a link at the end of this. That way you can share it as well. As I stated earlier, this is what we'll cover today. Just had our introductions. We'll have our introductions, solar technology, solar economics, and how solar co-ops work. Thank you so much to our partners, the City of El Paso. I'm very excited to work with them. And we also have Amanecer People's Projects, and it looks like we're missing one organization, but he is here today, Joshua Simmons with Eco El Paso. Hi, Josh.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Go ahead with the next slide, please. Beautiful. Came out at the end. What is Solar United Neighbors? So we are a vendor neutral national 501c3 nonprofit.
And America, before we move over, we wanted to ask if anyone would like this presentation in Spanish, since we do have that capacity.
Here is our theory of change. First, we go solar. So we support people who are going solar. Right now is the first step. Join together. So that means that you'll be joining other solar enthusiasts as well in this bulk purchase potentially and fighting for your energy rights. Next slide, please. And this is how Sun got started. Our story began with something called the Mount Pleasant Solar Co-op in Washington, D.C. back in 2007. Walter, who's pictured in the left, is the son of the executive director, Anya Skolman. He and his friend Diego wanted to go solar. Anya looked into it and quickly found out that going solar wasn't so easy. So Walter and Diego went door to door around the neighborhood and signed up 50 neighbors interested in working together to untangle this complicated process. After lots of meetings, research, and coordination, give me 1 second. I totally lost my place. So after lots of meetings, research, and coordination, 45 neighbors in that first group went solar. And after that, Anya started getting calls from people all over the country wanting to organize similar groups. Since 2018, 326 people have gone solar with us. 3 megawatts of capacity have been installed. 9.1 million has been invested in local solar. 17.4 million, an estimated 17.4 million in energy savings over 25 years. 55 solar jobs have been created, and 87.8 million pounds of CO2 offsets. Before we get into the presentation, I want to take a moment to address the inequities in our current energy system. Communities of color, particularly the Black community, bear an unfair share of the cost of energy production, but receive fewer benefits. Families of color are disproportionately harmed by higher utility bills and disconnections. On top of that, housing discrimination is a barrier to homeownership and thus solar ownership. When Sun started, good to go. When Sun started with a group of economically and racially diverse neighbors, they focused on solar because it helped people pay their bills. It also helped them stay in their homes at a time when DC was being quickly gentrified, and the whole country was in the middle of a financial crisis. Rooftop solar lets communities invest locally and creates environmentally friendly local jobs, brings control of the energy system within our reach. We're working towards a new energy system that everyone can participate in, one that's fair and equitable. Next slide, please. We're going to go over the solar technology, solar economics, and going solar together. Next slide, please. Today, we're talking about solar photovoltaic technology. This word always makes you trip up. It converts light energy into usable energy. The majority of today's solar market is PV technology. Solar thermal is another residential solar technology. That would be for heating a pool or for directly heating your home's hot water, but it's a small percentage of today's market. Next slide, please. A solar panel is constructed of silicon cells and is surrounded by layers on either side to protect it from the elements and make it rigid so that it can be mounted securely. The silicon cells convert the sun's light into electricity. These panels are connected to the roof through a racking system. Racking systems come in a variety of types that allow solar installers to connect a solar array to just about any building or ground location. One of the most common roofing types is asphalt shingle. For this roof type, attachments were made of the rafters of your home through the roof and then waterproof to prevent leaks, either through flashings, like in this photo here, specialized compression and sealant attachments. Those attachments provide the base for aluminum rails, and then the aluminum rails, and then the panels are bolted on top of those rails. Next slide, please. Here's another roofing type. This is a standing seam metal roof that shows the use of clamps to attach to the roof seams, and then the racking sits on top of that. Next slide, please. If you have space and your local permitting laws allow it, putting solar on the ground is a great option. The panels can be pointed directly south and benefit from better airflow beneath them to maximize energy production. Ground mount systems often cost a little more because of the additional materials and the need for trenching the wires underground back to your home. Not all installers offer ground mounts. Solar inverters are the brains of your solar array. They convert the electricity coming from the panels into a form your house can use. They also allow you to see energy production from the solar array and how it performs over time, because inverters report that information to an online monitoring app that you can access. There are a few different kinds of inverters. String inverters on the left are a single unit that controls many panels. Microinverters are smaller and get attached behind each panel to control it individually. And optimizers plus string inverters are sort of a combination of the two. Your installer will recommend the type they feel is best for your home depending on things like how much shade there is. Shade can greatly impact how much your energy will produce. Microinverters and optimizers are often recommended when there is a potential for intermittent shade. Next, please. It's important to have some space on the circuit breaker in order to have solar. Some homes have the capacity, but some panels do need to be upgraded in order to get solar panels. The installer will want to know if you have this set up in order to get a proposal. They'll let you know if you need an upgrade, and the price is something that we do get through this co-op process. Next slide, please. Let's go through some terminology. Kilowatts are the system in which your system is measured in. 1,000 watts units are the equivalent of 1 kilowatt. Kilowatt hour is the production of the solar array and how it's measured. So your electricity bill has the amount of kilowatt hours consumed. And if you add yearly consumption, that information is determined to for the suggested size from an installer. The average size of the system in Texas is 6 to 7 kilowatts, and it's based on what you consume now and also what you plan on doing in the future. Other factors include roof size and budget, and you can also choose to add additional panels in the future. So here are the main components: the solar array, the inverter, the electrical panel, and the meter. We're tied to the meter in the event that you aren't home and you aren't using so much electricity, the electrons can go back into the grid and help out the grid itself and your neighbors. Here's a graph that shows the daily solar production. So your usage would be the orange one, and that production follows the sun. That is the solar production. And then your energy usage is in the blue. And your monthly solar production would be on the right. And then that just shows how much it is that you're using each month, but also your production that's followed from the sun. Next slide, please. Now, what could your electric bill look like? This is a good example of what your bill could look like. In El Paso, there is a $30 minimum when you have solar panels. So in this example, this person is being credited 380 kilowatt hours at 2.9 cents, which comes out to $11.02. So this person ended up paying $17.95. That was the credit that this person received. And we also see the previous reads along with the usage, the customer charge, which is $8.25, the charge to meet the $30 minimum, a federal tax credit of $1.37, and a military-based discount recovery factor of 15 cents. So what does a good roof for solar look like? A good roof for solar is pointing, give me 1 second, I got lost. A good rooftop for solar has little to no shading, is oriented west to east, and has enough space to mount the panels. The installer can help you determine this. Next. Batteries are a component that can be added to your system. During Winter Storm Uri, the people who had power were those with batteries. During an outage, solar panels cannot provide power, even if it is sunny, because we cannot backfeed electricity to the grid. It's dangerous to those who are working on it to try to bring it back online. Next slide, please. You may want storage if you live in an area with frequent outages or rolling blackouts. Important loads at home, such as medical equipment or well pumps, but also during emergencies and disaster preparedness. We have a guide to help you determine whether a battery is right for you at this link here, solarunitedneighbors.org/storage. Next slide, please. Thank you for that. The Johnsons lose power several times each year. Each time the power is out, it is typically for the entire day. So what will run when the power is out? You can kind of choose. So some people choose a refrigerator, the microwave, some lights and outlets, a cable modem, or a small window AC. Typically, people refrain from using electric stoves, dryers, and water heaters. Here's some frequently asked questions that Sun receives. When it comes to warranties, solar installations come with 3 types. Panels, the manufacturer's warranty for the equipment, which covers defects for panels and the inverter, and those can vary depending on the type of panel and inverter, but are typically anywhere from 10 to 25 years. The second type of warranty is power production, and it typically guarantees panels will produce at a certain level later in its lifespan. The third type is the labor warranty from the installer. And in the event that they made a mistake when weatherizing the roof and you have a leak, the labor warranty covers this type of situation. These are typically 5 to 10 years, sometimes they're longer. Homeowners insurance, please let them know if you've obtained a system and ensure that solar array because you have just made a large investment. For the most part, your solar array is low maintenance and you can ask the installer to go and check on it. I have heard of people just kind of putting some water on top of the array just in case any leaves or pollen get onto it, but it really doesn't affect the job of the panel itself. Systems last under warranty to produce for about 25 years. The systems can and do last longer than that. Homeowners associations and property owners associations cannot prohibit or restrict a property owner from installing a solar energy device, according to Texas Tax Code 171.107. Additionally, you will not be taxed on the additional value that you've added to the home by installing the array. You may need permission from the HOA, and they may request that you move the array north to where it affects the output more than 10%, but that also isn't permitted. Historic districts may need to be informed about the addition of solar to the home, but they also cannot say no. Now, there is something about hail, and I am going to ask that either Vincent or Trinity help me with this.
Sure. So hail can definitely damage a panel, but panels, generally speaking, are over-engineered. So if the hailstones are big enough to damage a panel, they've probably destroyed the roof under it. They are you're able to, in the case that the panels are damaged, to file a claim on your homeowner's insurance to get the panels replaced. But generally speaking, most hailstones that would be like average size or smaller size are not going to affect the durability or the electrical generating capacity of the panels.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much for that. Next slide, please. Next is solar economics. Next slide, please.
Before we move on, does anyone have any questions about the solar technology we went over? Feel free to come off mute, or if you want to throw it in the chat, that can work too.
Solar is a fantastic investment as costs have dropped significantly, and you also get a 30% federal tax credit. This can be spread out over several years if you wish to do so, or you don't have the sufficient tax liability. Next slide, please. We work to make solar more accessible by educating people and by connecting you to the installer and lowering the soft cost, if you will, and the process by doing a group bid. Although the tax credit may be spread out over several years, such as 10, 10, and 10, in 2033, that credit drops to 26%. And then in 2034, it drops down to 22%. The IRA also offers tax credits on the following: electrical panel upgrades, electric heat pumps, battery storage, electric stoves, home electric vehicle charging, and electric vehicles. Here's an example of the pricing. Keep in mind, this is only an example. The actual size and price can and will vary based on the installer's pricing, the available roof size, and your budget. Trinity or Vincent, is there anything that either would like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just to, underscore that this is just example pricing. The 7 kilowatt figure is meant to produce as many kilowatt hours as the average El Paso electric customer might use in a given year. But if you have, a bigger home or more kids in the house, or if you're retired and it's just you or you and your spouse, and you may have a much smaller demand, the size of the system and the associated prices here are going to vary considerably. But generally speaking, 7 kilowatts is the average system size, and we're pretty confident that we will be at or near 275 per watt as a kind of all-in rate for an installed system once we get bids from installers.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Keep in mind that these pricing charts are also available on the co-op webpage, which is www.solarunitedneighbors.org/El Paso. A couple of the financing options. I think we're on the... Thank you so much. Okay, I apologize. So this is an example of financing. You may have a lower monthly payment versus lower total interest paid. So a 7 kilowatt system, over 10 years, your monthly payment may be about $175. Your electric monthly savings possibly would be at $133. Your net monthly payment at $41.16. Your net profit over 25 years would be at about $27,000. The numbers do change a little bit over 15 years. The monthly loan does drop slightly at $142.69. Monthly electric savings at $133. That stays the same. A net monthly payment would be $9. Your net profit over 25 years would be $23,000. Keep in mind, this is only an example. All these numbers can and will change. They vary depending on your system size, your interest rate, your credit score, and other additional factors that are taken into consideration. Keep in mind that these prices do not include incentives either.
Just a quick aside, it does include the 30% federal income tax credit. This loan does only end up financing 70% of the purchase price, and then assuming that when you get the tax credit back, you would make a one-time 30% cash payment sometime in the first 18 months of the purchase.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that correction. I certainly appreciate that, and I know everybody else does too. So as I stated, the numbers can and do vary. So this is just a chart. You do not need to take any pictures of it. This is just example pricing, because how much energy you use and when you use it does matter. And you don't need to offset 100% of your electricity consumption. Next slide, please. Some of the financing options are listed here, solarunitedneighbors.org/financing. Our website is a great resource, and I'm positive that you can find many of the questions that you have answered here. You can also go through the installer or on your own. Some people do choose to pull out a home equity line of credit. They refinance and they include solar. Some people choose to go through installer financing through the installer's financing company itself. There's also a clean energy credit union or community first credit union. No problem, go to the next one. This is how our solar co-ops work. So why should you join a solar co-op? You'll get the best value on the installation. You will get support such as this throughout this entire process. You'll connect with fellow solar enthusiasts, such as the people that are in this room, possibly that may go through the same experience as you. And you'll also become part of a growing solar movement. Here's what the solar co-op process looks like. First, you'll attend a free solar co-op info session. Welcome. This is where you're at right now. 2, you'll sign up online. Some people have already done that. You can become a co-op member and it's completely free to sign up. Please keep in mind there is no obligation to move forward. 3, you spread the word. The quicker that we get to 30 households that have signed up for a quote, we can begin the process to get proposals. So it is really important that you invite your neighbors and any friends that might be interested in joining. 4, selecting the installer goes a little bit like this. Once the co-op has about 30 members, the co-op will choose the solar installer. Keep in mind that this is a committee made of the people in the co-op itself, so we'll have a selection committee. Sun will issue a competitive request for proposal for solar installers on behalf of the co-op. We'll review the bids and then we will also check references. In about 4 to 8 months, these are the following steps. The sign-up deadline is in December, if I am not mistaken. I currently do not have the date right at the top of my head. You'll receive your proposal, which may be the co-op pricing, and it'll be customized for you. You'll sign the contract with the installer. You'll have an installation, and at the end, we will have a party, and I'll be in El Paso, and I loved it there, and I'll be able to meet everybody, and we'll be able to celebrate together. I see there's something in the chat. If you'd like to come off of mute and ask it, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I just had a question. I think Trinity answered it, but does it matter what side of town you're on, or do you take it by neighborhoods, or what she said, it doesn't matter as long as you're in the county?
Vincent
Correct.
answered you there. Yep. Anyone in El Paso County is eligible.
Thank you.
So what's next? Going to solarunitedneighbors.org / El Paso. Please remember to tell your friends and neighbors about the co-op. And you can direct any questions here. It's us that are answering these emails. So it's not going to go to like some AI bot or like an automated message. There are people that are behind these emails, which is one of my favorite things about this entire process, because this way your questions will always be answered. Our email is txteam@solarunitedneighbors.org. It's a little bit long. We apologize.
I have one more question.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
If you don't get the 30 members, is the program over, or is it if anybody, if it's less than 30, will those less than 30 be able to go out to participate or not?
That is a really good question. I'm going to defer to Vincent because I just started working at Sun earlier this year. This is my first co-op, which I'm very excited about. And Vincent does have a lot more knowledge under his belt.
Welcome.
Yeah, so we're very confident that we'll get to 30. We're over halfway there at this point. And if you go to the website and join, that would be a great boost. But in a few more weeks, we're planning to send out the RFP. We anticipate being at 30 by then. If we're not, we may delay for a couple weeks, but we've never really had a problem, especially when we have, strong partners like, El Paso and Buenos Aires. I'm very confident that we'll get there. And this is also our second co-op. So, the installer and program, we anticipate that there will be a lot of interest on that end as well, which should make the pricing more competitive.
Great, thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, about 120 people more or less signed up for the co-op last year, and somewhere in the range of 80 went solar. So we are really expecting quite a few people to sign up. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Was that in El Paso or just Texas in general?
That was El Paso itself.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any additional thoughts, comments, remarks, anything that you liked, maybe didn't like?
I have a question. It's in the chat.
Beautiful. Give me 1 second while I look for it. I have a question about El Paso Electric and the consistency of their rates. Some mistrust after a Chase Front company bought it. Also, older solar adopters sold electricity to EPE, but is there less of that now? So I personally do not live in El Paso, and I'm not really sure how El Paso Electric, I guess, manages their rates and what their consistency is. So I am actually going to ask Josh with Eco El Paso, and if he has any insight on this. Josh, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry. Can you hear me?
problem. Loud and clear.
All right. So El Paso Electric sets their rates with the Texas Utility Commission, the Public Utility Commission of Texas. And then they submit, typically rate changes every 2 years or so. By law, they're required to submit a rate change, I think no earlier than 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. But that's a larger argument. And then, yes, I think what she's trying to get at is the rebate rate is lesser than, say, older solar adopters who got grandfathered in and different packages that El Paso Electric is offered now. So I think a good note for us to add on this presentation, maybe to going in a little more information on the current package that El Paso Electric has and making sure that it's updated. Because I do know there were recent changes. One of them was the recent update of it going from where homeowners could do 120% offset to now we're just limited to 100% offset. So no solar adopters would be grandfathered in or would be under the newer policy that El Paso Electric has available.
Yeah, so generally speaking, in the past, utilities were, this is Vincent at Sun, were happier to offer full retail net metering because solar was just such a small percentage of there was such a small level of interest in solar at the time, 10, 15 years ago, even 5 to 7 years ago, that it wasn't really a big financial concern for these electric companies. But now that solar is becoming more affordable, a lot of states are reconsidering, public utility commissions are reconsidering how they're going to reimburse the customers who are going solar on their residents. So I wouldn't be surprised if a few years ago El Paso Electric was offering full retail net metering. The way that it works now, however, is for any excess kilowatt hours that you have left over at the end of the month, you're reimbursed not at full retail, but at what's called a like wholesale or avoided cost rate. So you're still on the residential rate, but there's a distributed generation tariff on there. So basically what happens is you get 2.5 cents, on average 2.5 cents back per kilowatt hour for what is left over at the end of the month. So the goal is to consume as much of your solar power on site as possible, and avoid exporting as much as possible.
Once again, Vincent coming in with the extremely valuable insight.
The net effect of that, I'll just say, is that the payback periods have gotten a little bit longer and the economics have become a little bit less competitive. But that's one of the reasons why, Solar United Neighbors operates our, bulk purchase program where we have a competitive RFP. So, if we cannot control what the utility is going to charge or how they're going to reimburse their solar customers, what we can try to do is we can try to get a lower cost and still a quality product, quality components, but a lower cost for solar, so that you can, have some power in making what is now slightly less economical closer to as economical as it used to be.
So I am interested in seeing how many people have already signed up or were signed up prior to this webinar. And of course, I'm hoping that everybody got plenty of information. I know it is a lot to digest in one sitting. I know I had to read over it a few times and have people explain it to me multiple times. As I stated earlier, you will be receiving this via email. So you can always refer back to it, and you can also share it as well with any friends and neighbors. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add?
America, this is Dora. I do have one more question, and you might have answered this already. I'm sorry, I came on a little late. Does the solar co-op, through the procurement process, is battery storage also something that is offered?
This is Vincent. I can speak to that. Yeah, so once people fill out the application on the solarunitedneighbors.org website, one of the questions that we ask is whether or not folks are interested in batteries and EV chargers, one or the other or both, and we'll share that information with installers. We don't mandate that an installer offers a battery product, but in my experience, usually the installer that is selected does offer at least one, but sometimes two or three battery storage solutions. Typically, the pricing is anywhere in the vicinity of like $10,000 to $15,000 for a lithium-ion battery pack, and that's kind of a shock to some people because that can be perhaps even 100% of the solar cost. So it can, double the cost of the of the transaction. So we typically see only about 10% of folks who say that they are interested in battery storage actually go solar. But to answer your question, I can say pretty confidently that the installer chosen will end up offering battery storage.
Thank you.
Having technical difficulties. I do want to add that Dora Hernandez is with the city of El Paso. Thank you so much for joining us, the group. And I also want to thank you for all the help that you guys have been doing. And it's because of partnerships like this that we're able to do these co-ops. All right, I think that's it. If anybody has anything else they'd like to add, now is the time. Once again, my name is America Garcia. I am the Texas Program Director. You can send any questions that you might have to this email, txteam@solarunitedneighbors.org.